Hello, everyone. Enjoy this inspiring and fascinating story about a lazy young man who was actually intelligent. In a small house on the outskirts of a town lived a young man with his parents. His name was Ronald, and he was extremely lazy. His daily activity consisted of helping his father in the fields, using a long pole and a slingshot to scare off birds. Ronald chose to install wooden poles in various corners of the field, attaching small bells to them and connecting everything with strings. His goal was simple: to lie down in the field and scare the birds away without having to stand up. His father was somewhat worried about his son's laziness. He feared that if he ever fell ill, Ronald would not be able to handle the work on his own. And unfortunately, his fear became reality. One dry season, when the rice crops desperately needed care, his father became sick and was no longer able to work in the field. All the responsibilities now fell on Ronald. As expected, during that drought, the rice plants they had cared for so painstakingly began to wither and die due to lack of water. Ronald couldn't manage everything alone. He wasn't used to working hard. The family's savings began to run dry, used up for daily needs and his father's medical bills. They were falling into despair. The harvest they had hoped would sustain them had now vanished. That night, Ronald sat silently under the stars, feeling useless and disappointed. For a village youth, working in the fields shouldn't be that difficult. But because of his habit of lazing around and never working hard, the only hope his family had to survive was gone. He was confused and didn't know what to do. The next morning, he heard a faint commotion in the village. Ronald walked over to the crowd. There, he saw royal guards announcing that, in celebration of the prince's birthday, a competition would be held at the palace. The winner would receive a chest of gold. Ronald announced he would join the competition, and the villagers laughed at him. How could someone as lazy as him possibly win a contest when the participants came from all across the kingdom? Nevertheless, one of the royal guards informed Ronald that the competition would be held in 3 days near the king's palace. Since Ronald lived on the outskirts of the kingdom, he needed to leave 2 days early to arrive on time. Though his parents doubted his chances, they gave him their blessing and prayed for him. They weren't expecting a victory, they just hoped this effort would mark the beginning of a new, hard-working Ronald. Time passed. After Ronald's departure, the day of the competition finally arrived. The participants were gathered at the edge of a lake not far from the palace. Seeing the other contestants, most of whom were muscular and well-trained, made Ronald nervous. How could he beat these people in a test of strength? But no one had been told yet what the rules or tools for the contest would be. Ronald hoped for rules that might work in his favor. He took a deep breath, reminding himself of why he was there. His family needed to survive, and his father needed treatment in the city. Once all the participants had gathered, the rules were finally read aloud. Today's challenge is to cross the lake, a distance of 2 kilometers. Use anything at your disposal: muscle, strength, experience, or intelligence. The first 3 people to reach the other side will advance to the next round for a chance to win the chest of gold. No teamwork or sabotage allowed. Once everyone understood the rules, the countdown began. The participants all jumped into the lake, swimming with all their strength. Organizers were stationed along the lake in case anyone grew too tired and started to drown. But there was one person who hadn't jumped in yet: Ronald. As others swam with all their might, he stood still, thinking. "There's no way I can win if I join in a swimming contest," he thought. Then, unexpectedly, he ran into a nearby forest. A few moments later, he returned with 2 pieces of light, hollow wood. One, he pushed into the water to use as a raft, and the other, flatter piece, he used as a paddle. Ronald was the only one who truly understood. This was a competition to cross the lake, not a swimming contest. "I may not have muscles or swimming experience, but I have a bit of intelligence and determination," Ronald said to himself as he began to paddle. Other participants were slowing down due to exhaustion. Fortunately, Ronald managed to finish in 3rd place, securing the last spot in the final round. The other 2 qualifiers were strong, muscular men. After a day of rest, the final round began. In a large open field, cube-shaped wooden blocks of identical size and weight were placed in front of each finalist. Then the final challenge was announced. This challenge is to push the wooden block in front of you for a distance of 2 kilometers. Behind you, there is a pile of various tools. You may only choose one tool to help you, and once chosen, it cannot be changed. Think carefully. Like before, use muscle, experience, and intelligence. The winner will receive a chest of gold. The crowd roared with excitement. The 3 contestants walked over to the pile of tools. Among the items were ropes, scissors, gloves, planks, chains, knives, and more. The first contestant quickly grabbed a rope to pull the block. The second chose a plank, planning to use it as a lever to move the block little by little. Ronald, however, remained seated, staring at the pile of tools. He carefully considered how each item could be used. 10 minutes passed. The first contestant had already dragged his block 100 meters. The second was about 10 meters behind him. But Ronald still hadn't moved. He thought it would be better to spend time choosing the right tool than to compete with raw strength against the other 2 participants. 30 minutes passed. The other 2 contestants had already pushed their wooden blocks 300 meters. Ronald, meanwhile, finally chose a knife. Spectators and judges were puzzled. How could he possibly move a heavy wooden block with just a knife? But instead of pushing the block, Ronald began carving every corner of it. Luckily, though it was heavy, the wood was soft enough to carve. Slowly but surely, the cube-shaped block transformed into a round ball. Ronald spent hours carving the wood. Once it was shaped to his liking, he began to push. The wooden ball rolled easily. Ronald kept pushing, hoping to catch up with his 2 rivals who were already far ahead. Now I just need to focus on pushing. There's no time to waste, he thought. He pushed and pushed, ignoring everything around him. For the first time in his life, he was working this hard, feeling sweat, fatigue, and exhaustion. It was only the hope for his family's future that gave him strength. Eventually, Ronald finished the race as the first participant to cross the finish line. The audience and organizers erupted in cheers. No one expected an ordinary-looking young man to beat strong, well-trained competitors. A lazy young man, with intelligence and hard work, had won the competition. Friends, lazy people are often actually quite intelligent and capable. The problem is they're lazy. This story shows that if a lazy person is willing to try harder and maximize their potential, success is within reach. Keep fighting, even when others underestimate or criticize you. Find a strong reason to push yourself harder. Don't forget to leave a like and a positive comment if this video helped you. Thank you, and see you in the next story.